I get asked a lot of questions about how I made this kit. Also questions about what materials I used, how I painted the hardware, is it durable, etc., stuff like that. So I thought I'd do a quick overview of it. I started it in 2018, so it's probably about 6 years old now. So I'll go through it and see how it's held up. To start with the shells, the Lars Ulrich kit was Art Star 2, which are maple. These are Grand Star, which are 9-ply birch. And we've got a 10 by 10, 12 by 11, 13 by 12, 14 by 13, 16 by 16, 18 by 16. And here we've got the Artwood 526 snare. Now on the Lars kit, that obviously was different. He used 24-inch kick drums. These are 22. He used 10, 12, 14, 16, and then two 18s. Now to me personally, I'd never use 18-inch floor toms. Getting them to move anyway is hard enough. So I went for smaller toms, smaller kick drums, but as you can see, the kit's really in proportion with itself and does look quite close to the original. The only things that I never really finished was the tom mounts. I never powder coated them, and to be honest, I'm kind of glad I didn't now. Other than that, I think it looks great, it sounds great, it's a really nice kit to own. But I'll take it apart and go through some of the materials and how I wrapped it. So there's pinstripes all around the toms. I use a coated head with the control dot on it. I use EMADs. I think they're brilliant heads personally. The Rezo heads are all the Remo Ebonies, and I just used a stock Star Classic 22-inch front heads. The first part of the kit I found was a later Grand Star. You can see the shells here are beautiful, so I suspect this was probably for a Grand Star custom. Maybe they stopped making them and they're reusing the last of the shells up. But if you look at the 18, this has got the straight grain, so this is probably an earlier model. It's also got the earlier brackets. So this one's probably very late 80s, early 90s, and this one was probably 86, 87. I originally got the kit as a 22, a 10, 12, 13, 14 and 16. I then found a 22, which was in real bad shape. I've done a previous video on that before. And then I found the 18. Once I had all the shells, I had to figure out how to wrap them and sort the hardware out. So I stripped everything down, took the hardware off. I kept all the original wrap, which was gunmetal grey, like this. Obviously taking care, and I managed to reuse all these as well, which was good. But the wrap itself, back then I couldn't find any wrap, so I went onto eBay and I managed to find some cladding. This is PVC cladding, which is about 0.5mm thick, obviously flexible, and is actually really quite good. It's not deteriorated, it's still shiny, it's very durable. I stuck it on just using the double-sided tape method. I didn't want to try and glue it to the shell in case it didn't work. This is where I obviously learned to remove the grommets and reuse them without damaging them. You can see in there the grommet's still all fine. All the screws have stayed rust-free. So overall, for a 6-year-old drum, it still looks brand new. It's a bit dusty. And obviously repeated that process on the rest of the kit. So with the hardware, I went down the powder coating route, which was very painful and slow and expensive, but I had these all blasted and then professionally powder coated. But I mean, the finish is fantastic. It looks really smart, and it's durable. I mean, the tom mount, that's been on and off lots of times, and look, you can see there's not that much damage there. You'd never really even know. There's a couple of little minor scratches, but overall it's held up really, really well. A good example of how the powder coating's held up over time is the floor tom legs. And you can see from these, they're not that badly scratched. The spurs, you can see there's a couple of marks, but again, powder coating seems to have held up quite well. I took a slightly different approach with the snare. This is actually lacquered. I had that professionally lacquered by a car firm up the road. We've done a good job of it, and the colour match is nice. I'll do it myself now knowing what I know about paint, but the only thing that's not original on it is the grommet. This is a screw-in type of grommet, but it looks looks fairly similar to the original one, but it's a great snare. With the lugs, I didn't shot blast these because they're hard to find. So if I ever wanted to go back to chrome on them, I could just put some paint stripper on them and they'll be back to how they were originally. Same with the butt plate and the strainer. But these are great snares, they sound incredible. So this was originally like this, apart from it was in terrible condition. The original piano white finish was absolutely knackered on it. So I've sanded it back and it looked pretty similar to this, to be honest. And then I had it painted. This one I found recently, and I'm going to repaint this black to bring it back to its original finish. This was the second kick I found, which was in a right state. The hoops, I painted them myself and then lacquered them as I've done others, which again, they still look brand new, they're not faded. But in terms of a powder coating, you imagine you've got 20 lugs, you've got 20 claws, 20 T-rods, you've got the fixings, you've got nuts and bolts, you've got spurs. You know, it's a big job, it's quite involved. Probably the hardest bit of the replica is definitely the powder coating. This was also the first drum that I wrapped. Now, obviously I didn't have a clue what I was doing, and I just sort of thought about it the best way I could, got a process in mind and went for it. And generally, it stayed really tight, there's no wrinkles. The seam, you can see is a bit dirty, dusty, but you can see there's some glue here. I mean, it's right at the bottom of the drum where you can't see it, but I mean, I'd be mortified if I did it now, but back then for a first try, it weren't too bad. But it's still really tight, which is the main thing. I could probably get some degreaser on there and clean that up, and I probably should do actually. But other than that, it still looks brand new. Here's the two floor toms, and as I mentioned, the 18 was the drum I found last. And I can't remember if I wrapped this with the PVC. That's definitely PVC. I think this was drum wrap. You can see a very slight difference in the colour. And I'd say that's the only issue I've had on the whole build so far. Whether it's faded or not, I don't know. It was a great project to work on. I'm really proud of how they turned out. Seeing as I had no experience of wrapping before, you know, it was good to take it on. I learned a lot from it. I'd probably do things a little bit differently knowing what I know now, but that's hindsight for you. I think the original grey kit I had was, you won't find many of them. The chrome was fantastic on it, so I should have waited to find more drums like the bass drum and snare drum, which were in a bad way. And if I was a bit more patient, I could have found them all, and then I would have felt a little bit less guilty. That's why I mentioned about the tom mounts. I'm glad I didn't powder coat them, because I'll probably find some absolutely battered ones within the next couple of years, and I won't feel guilty about changing them. I am thankful for keeping all the wraps though, because with all the wraps off the grey kit, I managed to make this kit here. So all the wraps were salvaged, and I managed to make this, and I found that all from orphan drums, and they are in a similar condition to this, where it's scratched up. You know, the hardware's not the best, but once it's blasted, it takes all the flaking off, and they can end up looking like this. So if you're going to take a project on like this yourself, try and find battered ones. Leave the good ones alone. Use the bad ones and give them a new lease of life.